and thirds.
What is it that you hope to see? Because again, as you know, it's obviously a work in progress. So what are you hoping to see from that group?
Well, you want to see some consistency out there. You want to see them, getting in the huddle, breaking the huddle, getting to the line of scrimmage, and then being successful with the plays that are called, operating things, doing things well. Hope we get all kinds of situational football going. We'd love to see a couple of third downs, love to see some red zone stuff, obviously, and then some short yardage and goal line. I mean, you hope for that in your first game. That's why you hopefully target somewhere between 15 and 20 plays, have a nice drive somewhere about 8 or 9 plays and stuff like that.
I know there's some guys that are probably obviously not going to play some of those tight ends, but what about Chase Rouillet? Will he?
No, Chase won't play. Chase won't play.
Curtis
will play.
Okay. And for your running back rotation, I know a long time in Carolina you relied on Christian McCaffrey, but how informative was the pair for Jonathan Stewart and Damian
and D'Angelo Williams?
Yeah,
it was very good. I mean, early on, when I was there at the beginning, having those two guys and Fozzie Whitaker, was really a good mix. And I think we have, a pretty solid mix right now with the guys that we have in that room.
Was that informative to how you wanted to build out this room if you couldn't?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because again, in today's game, you just can't have one really good back. You've got to have a couple of really good backs that are, your guys that are, you're going to feed the ball to when they're running well. You got to have a guy that's kind of a change of pace, a guy that can play any down, but he also is a change of pace, different type of runner, different type of threat out of the backfield.
And another guy, just real quick, that I forgot to ask about for injuries, Benjamin St. Juste, will he play on Saturday?
Yes.
You could see after practice that Ryan Kerrigan was working with some of the pass rushers and just some of the linemen. Is that something you guys would consider bringing on full-time as just like a pass rush specialist to help with those guys?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now with Ryan, he's kind of trying to feel things out and get a feel for what he wants to do. So he's asked about shadowing the coaches. And, it's been kind of interesting because, both Sweat and Chase just gravitate to him. And, they spend a lot of time talking. They really do. It's kind of good to watch, somebody who's got a tremendous amount of knowledge, vast experience like his. I think it's been good to have him around and be around our guys.
And Alex Erickson and Dax Milne seem like they've been the primary two, obviously,
yes,
with returners. But what have you seen from them? And then what do you look for when you're watching returners?
Well, you want a guy, first of all, that can secure the catch, and we know both those guys can do that. They both have done it in NFL games. And don't discount the opportunity for us to use Jahan as well. That's something that, we've talked about and something we're going to continue to discuss as we get closer and closer to the regular season.
I got to work on my stretching. Obviously, you guys can get a lot out of practice, but game conditions are different. Are
yes,
there certain positions that you find just you'll learn more out of the game than just out here?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say any specific position. I think you're going to learn about our entire football team out there, and it'll start right up front, with what's going on with the offensive and defensive fronts, more so than anything else. Then the skill players come into play, obviously, running backs, linebackers, and then your DBs and your receivers. I mean, but the biggest question is always going to be quarterback, and everything comes back to that position. So I'm just excited the fact that, we will have game situations. We will practice, or we will play against some different folks. So I'm really just looking forward to it as a whole.
And to that end, for a guy like Brian Robinson, a guy who's like a physical runner, to be able to see him in that setting, I assume that'll maybe show even a little bit more than what he's shown to this point?
It will. I mean, we've had several live periods this year during camp, and that's been good to see. And this is about as live as it gets, so I'm looking forward to it.
Last year on defense, you guys like to use 5 down linemen quite a bit. What are you looking for when you guys go with that front?
Well, the biggest thing that we do it's more of a matchup than it is anything else. And, depending on what an offense is going to give us is going to dictate some of our personnel matchups that we try to create.
And what have you seen from Casey and James Smith-Williams so far this camp?
Well, I mean, they're two opposites. I mean, the thing about Casey that you like is, he's a guy that has the flexibility that you can drop him into coverage on occasion. And that, I think, is to the benefit, especially when you get into that five-man front, because we're not always rushing five. And that's what a guy like that gives. With James, you got more of a big physical guy that plays downhill, plays into the line more. And with him, you don't have as much flexibility.
How is Cornelius Lucas coming along?
He's coming along well. You know, again, he had a medical thing that he has to work through right now, and hopefully he'll be back on the field very shortly. I don't know if you guys saw him, but they had him working on some of the stuff today. So when you start seeing those guys start hitting things and pushing things, you know they're getting closer.
And with tight ends, is it? I mean, I know you're missing a lot of guys, so how do you feel about that for week one? I know it's a couple weeks away, and then what can the backups do in the preseason while the starters
I'm not as concerned
recuperate?
about week one. I expect us to have those guys back, but I'm a little concerned, obviously, going into the preseason, just because the guys that we need to see or we want to see won't be able to play, and that's unfortunate.
You've asked about Sadiq or Troy. What are those guys dealing with, and what timelines do you expect?
No timelines. You know, I'm going to give you a timeline, but do expect again. I saw Sadiq over hitting the pads as well. Again, that's always a good sign. Hopefully we'll get him back very, very shortly and have him back on the field.
Obviously, you said Carson's going to play in this game, but I would imagine Sam Howell's probably going to get a lot, if not most, of the work. What do you kind of want to see from him in this game?
Well, all three quarterbacks will play. Taylor will come in after Carson, and then Sam will finish up. You know, with Taylor, we'll probably get him into the third quarter a little bit, and then we'll let Sam finish up. And what would be really good, and we worked on it, was the last thing we worked on today, is I'd love to see Sam get a 2-minute, you know, at the end of the game. That would be really cool. It'd be a real good experience for him as well. You know, and he's still got a lot to learn, but just consistency is what you're hoping. You know, hoping he has some success, hoping he controls things and is consistent with you know, with his ball placement when he throws it. All right. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Hi, guys. Two questions.